Welcome to the Spike Feed, your leading Magic the Gathering podcast. What is up? My name is Curtis, and I'm just your typical Spike. On the air, live with me, is my good buddy and producer extraordinaire and extremely busy TV producer, Cameron McCoy. What's up, man?
Not a lot, man. Yeah, busy, but living life and enjoying it. I mean, I got a beekeep this week. I mean, how many Magic podcasts can talk about that?
Well, I think it's probably the most Spike Feed thing that... Yeah, this week I kept bees, right? We're just
Yeah,
keeping that NPR vibe. Uh,
right.
so what do you do when you keep bees? This is what I don't know.
I think you just put them out in a field, and that's about it. They go and collect nectar from flowers and whatnot, and bring it back, and then you steal their honey. That's how it works. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That was much less entertaining than I thought it would be. Um, well, we're going to start out this week really talking about what we've been doing. Unfortunately, Cameron and I, Cameron hasn't had a chance to pre-release. If I pre-release, it'll happen this afternoon.
Mhm.
And that's Sunday pre-releases are kind of the least fun pre-release because everyone else knows what's up and you don't know what's up, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like whenever somebody has played a video game a week in advance and then you start playing and you get hosed completely.
It's like hopping into Overwatch right now and expecting to be competitive, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
exactly it. Yeah.
anyway, let's talk about our week. So, Cameron, you've just touched on Legacy, right?
Yeah, I started another Legacy League. Started recording those. They should be up sometime this week when I get a chance to upload them. But I'm playing just a straight up Grixis Delver deck that is the most stock of stock lists.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. It's like legitimately great. I've been playing for the past year, essentially a year and a half, Stoneblade, and it's varied between Jeskai, Blue White, and Nesper.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are great, and I love, love, love Stoneblade. But like in the current meta, it's just not where it needs to be. And I think I've been suffering with like my results as far as like I'm just not competitive against certain decks in the meta, especially against miracles,
Lands.
especially lands. There's just a ton of different decks that it's not good with. Grixis Delver is just right there. It is in the top 3, I think, as far as like best decks in the format right now. And it shows. It has legs against a ton of different decks. I played against a bug deck, just straight up bug, shardless bug. Normally, I would have such a hard time playing the grindy game against them just
Mm-hmm.
because they have raw card advantage that I cannot deal with. This I can play an aggro game or I can play a mid-range game, and I feel like I am competitive. Like where there are times where wipe the board with some sort of wrath on his turn, and I was still able to come back, which doesn't always happen with other decks.
Right.
So anyway, I've been doing all right. I'm currently 1-1 in the meta. It's still soft to combo, and so if you're playing something like Reanimator against something like Reanimator, it does. You have to win the counter games, and sometimes you can't. So, there it is.
Yeah. Well, dude, talk to me about the status of Legacy, which, by the way, still getting a lot of great, insightful emails and comments about the things I've said about Legacy the last couple weeks. But tell me about your wait times in the queue. Have they gotten better?
Yeah, I mean, okay. What day was that? It was Sunday night after we had recorded. That's when I started, and it seemed okay. I'm waiting about 3 to 4 minutes in the legacy queues. But granted, I was playing, I think, at a high traffic time as well, so I think that had a lot to do with it. If I'm wanting to play on a random Thursday after work, I feel like I'll probably have a more difficult time where it could be 5, 6, 10 minutes. And that's just frustrating when you're just sitting there for 10 minutes wanting to play and you can't, right?
Yeah. Try doing that on stream, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure it'd be awful, right?
That's what I discovered this week. So I did play Standard Banned Humans on Thursday. Thursday night is my standard night on stream, and the next couple weeks I'll probably just draft because Standard is very lame duckish right now. There's not a lot going on with it, and the wait times in the queues were pretty bad. I mean, my standard league I went 3-2. that's that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I wanted to discuss was the Modern League I played on Monday. So I said on the show that I had Grixis Delver and I really wasn't caring for it, had trouble with it. So I just went ahead and, set a fire to a bunch of tickets and bought Nahiri Jeskai, right?
Yeah.
And I had the worst constructed performance that I can remember. I mean, it was so bad, so brutal. And
it was live.
And it was live. People could watch it happen. So there were a few things with that. So number one, there was the first 3 matches I didn't win a game, and I didn't even sniff a win. Like it was like against Burn, Dredge, and Ad Nauseam, and it's like I just lost horribly. And then I was able to pull out one of the next matches, and then lost at the end. The mirror match due to timing and me just being a relative sourpuss too. Like, but those last couple matches when you're in a competitive league don't matter when you're 0-3. Like 2-3 and 1-4 gives you nothing. So you're just kind of doing it for the practice or whatever. I do like the deck, and I like it better than Grixis Delver. It's got more game against multiple decks, I feel like, and the control game is just so strong. I will say though, control is just so problematic in Modern still, right? Like one of the big problems that you're going to run into whenever you're playing the deck is Nahiri. So Nahiri, when she is strong, is great. In multiples, it's completely brutal. And I know people say, well, you can just plus and get rid of the Nahiri, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, sure. But a lot of times you might need to minus it. There's just all these kind of weird problems that you run into with multiple Nahiris in your deck that you really want it to be like. I've toyed around with the idea of going with 3 Nahiri, 1 Jace, Architect of Thought, something like that.
Okay.
And some kind of mixture. The other big problem with the deck is there's this whole burn package that is great against creature decks and completely hapless against the combo decks. And same with the counter magic, right? Like if you're holding a bunch of Romance against Naya Burn, it's like, oh, okay, this is great. And so what can happen is you just end up drawing the wrong half of your deck. And there's no real way. In Legacy, you can alleviate that very easily with Brainstorm, with Chase the Mind Sculptor, with Ponder. And this has nothing like that. You have Serum Visions, which is just a reminder of how sad your life is. Serum Visions exist to just say, hey, dude, look at these 2 cards on top of the deck that you need but are not on time, right? And the other thing, I mean, it's always a little bit of a feel bad when your mana doesn't work out, but in this deck, it definitely happens. You can just be short red mana or short blue mana because you're a 3-color deck and you're in this format.
Yeah.
So I like the deck. I'm going to tinker with it a lot. I just took a stock list, and that was a huge mistake. Like the stock list I grabbed had no Anger of the Gods, and it's 75. None in the main, none in the side. And
did it have any Wraths at all?
It had 2 Supreme Verdicts.
Supremes, okay.
Which are awful against Dredge or any of these recursive decks.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And it's a turn later. Like, I think you should probably play some combination of the 2. But
I agree, yeah.
Dude, just so bad. Just so something I need to tune. So I'm going to play it again Monday. And, I love it that people can watch me play these games. The flip side is, and I think I've had a big problem with this, is playing and talking at the same time. Usually, whenever I was recording videos, I could just play and I would forget to speak. Well, when you're on stream, you're much more cognizant of the fact that you got to talk, right? Because there are people in the chat or whatever. And then you just make the most boneheaded mistakes all the time.
You play like Cameron is really what happens.
Yeah. Multiple people mentioned that, right? But you got to pop in and watch me play some Standard. Was that surreal for you?
No, it was actually very enjoyable. And I haven't actually been watching a lot of Standard at all. So it was really interesting to just see how Bant Humans kind of operates against the 2 decks that I watched you play against. It's good. It's a broken record. Standard's just in this very healthy place right now. And it's actually very enjoyable to watch games, which I have a hard time choking down, but it happens. So I like it.
Well, especially, whenever I can mock you live.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know that's what you're missing on a weeknight. You're like, God, I'm just feeling too confident, too successful. I need somebody to bring me down a notch.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and take a quick break. Grab some coffee, whatever we need. We're going to come back. We're going to go real deep on the metagame post Eldritch Moon. All right, Cameron, I'm officially excited, buddy. You know why? Today we are debuting Comb.
Comb.
Curtis's official metagame breakdown. That's right. We did this for Shadows. And there's a rotation, so we kind of went more in depth, but we kind of talked about a lot of the decks that we thought we would see. And dude, I don't know if you've gone back and listened to that. We were reasonably close to on point. I mean, it was I was really proud of us. We, let's see, we predicted black-white, blue-red Eldrazi. I mean, got there, right? No one else, I'm sure, in all of Magic.
Yeah. LSV, no way did he predict any
nobody even talked about this. And I would say, my criticism is still there. Like, there are Star City seems to be the only one that's actually doing a lot of the, hey, here's the upcoming metagame articles. There's a few on TCG Player, but it's amazing how many Magic websites, like, they just take 2 weeks to just focus entirely on the limited stuff. And I love limited, and I think it's great, and I love playing these sets in limited. But it's so annoying to want to sit and brew, and it's just like every site just has like 1 or 2 articles. Like, how is this not the main editorial focus for your website right now? Like, how is it? I don't understand, Maybe everybody just wants to feel like a brewer for like a week before the real thing sets in. They want to believe that they've got some secret tech, right? That nobody else will know because there are $5s of dollars on the line at their newest F&M, right? Okay,
exactly.
So I want to talk about what I think are going to be tier 1 and tier 2 decks. Okay?
All right.
So let's start with Bant. Okay. So there's 2 flavors of Bant Humans and Bant Cocoa, right? I think post the release of Eldritch Moon, Bant Cocoa will be the better deck than Bant Humans. That's my guess.
So how long? I'm just really curious. Do we have Collected Company for
this set and then
go around?
Yeah, and then in October it rotates out, or September, whenever that is. So it's like 2 months. But the Bant Cocoa deck is more similar to the old Bant deck, or the old Collected Company Rally deck, where you play things like Sylvan Advocate. You might even play Jace. You play Flip Nissa, all those kinds of things, right? Yeah. The addition of Spell Queller and some of these other kind of utility pieces, I think it's going to be better. And I don't know that you're going to gain as much from just playing the humans, right? They gain Tamio is probably a 2-of, and probably replacing Ojutai's Command. It's pretty close to the same casting cost. But I think you'll also probably play a 2 of Thalia, which, by the way, Cameron, I don't know how many people I've heard say they think Thalia is unplayable in older formats.
You'll see it. Like, the 3 casting cost is hard, I understand. But the power of that card is so good that it's going to shut down certain games, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I'm stunned at kind of people, like, is so overtly powerful. Tamio is also overtly powerful, but man, that casting cost up there matters. And so I think we'll see it as a 2-of. I think it'll be in those decks. I don't think it'll spawn anything new. Some people have mentioned that they think Tamio could see legacy play. I would be kind of be stunned, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's the Bant. So I think Bant Cocoa, Bant Humans are still going to be a thing. They will likely surpass the Green-White Tokens deck, just because you gain so much out of this. Now, you can put Tamio in the Green-White Humans deck, and that's great. But I think just the overall power level, we've seen Green-White, the Avacyn, Hangerback, Walker deck, kind of reduce. And I think there's going to be some other decks that pop up that are hurt that thing, right? So There is that. Now, other deck that I really like. This might surprise you. Red White Humans.
I think that's, yeah,
were you
totally
watching?
solid.
Were you watching the stream when I lost horribly to this deck?
Was that I don't remember. I remember you playing some sort of red based deck, but I don't think it was red white.
Oh, you saw me play that vampire deck thing.
That's what it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this deck is not going to gain a ton. It's just going to gain this, the Hasteland, and Thalia. And that's going to be annoying enough, I promise. The red-white deck is mostly white. It plays a bunch of little guys, like Kytheon, and Town Gossip Monger, this kind of thing. But the top of the curve for that deck has not been great, right? You're like bringing Griff's Boon out of the graveyard to give your guys flying, stuff like that.
Sure.
Or making Kytheon give things indestructible. This card is so obnoxious and allows that deck to go extremely wide. It's very good. And, it's just worth pointing that out, right? So there is that. Let's see. What else is on my handy-dandy cheat sheet? Black-white control. Okay, so there was one card here that I wanted to talk about that we completely skipped over covering. Have you read this card yet, Cameron?
No, read it for me. I can't see it right now.
Okay, so because there's this set has more just giant text boxes of cards, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And this one, Distended Mindbender. Okay, it's one of these emerge cards. It's 8 colorless, or I'm sorry, edit 8 generic for a 5/5 Eldrazi insect. Okay. And it says emerge 5 BB. Okay. When you cast Distended Mindbender, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You may choose a non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less, and a card with converted mana cost 4 or greater. That player discards both those cards. Right?
It's good. It's really good.
It's really good. And so black-white, I think, is going to slowly morph into a slightly more Eldrazi flavored deck. Because right now, black-white has like no creatures. Right? Now you're probably going to play Thought-Knot Seer, Distended Mindbender, maybe Kalidas. It's still going to have, a lot of the main things that it can do. You're going to add Liliana to that deck, but there's nothing wrong with that deck playing this card at 8 mana. Just playing it. You're going to get to 8 all the time because you have a ton of point-click removal.
Yeah.
That deck gets a lot better because they're also going to add Liliana. The problem that it has is card drawing and card filtering, okay? So I like this deck a lot. It's still really good, but I think the next 3 decks I'm going to mention are probably going to be a little bit better, okay?
All right.
Blue-Red Eldrazi. This is a deck you messed around with, right?
I played it, a couple times and really dug it. It was super fun.
I think that deck is going to get a lot better. So do you still have those pieces on Magic Online? Because you should hold on to them if you do.
No, I actually pretty much sold all of them, but you're totally right. With all those like the flash cards and whatnot, it's going to be good. The emerge cards, I should say. But.
Yeah, well, you're correct in both aspects. I think Elder Deep Fiend, which is the our other friend down here that I can't even believe they're printing this card. It is so good, guys. Like, and it's just so good in that deck. Like, also, the chat is telling you to stop selling everything, Cameron. You have all the money already. Right? Money's no object to you, Cameron. Come on. Yeah. Anyway, in case you're wondering where all the Patreon money goes, it goes to the Banana Republic so Cameron can just look super stylish on camera. It's very important. It's very important. Anyway, Elder Deep Fiend. If you're not on board with this card, you should be. It makes the Blue-Red Eldrazi deck a lot better. And it makes the in-game for that deck crazy good. I mean, killing a Thought-Knot Seer or killing something like, obviously Matter Reshaper's the dream, right? You sacrifice your Matter Reshaper to get your value back out, and then you cast this guy for 5 mana, right? Or 4 mana, or whatever. I mean, the discount is, cheap. Stupid cheap. And there are going to be a lot of times where you think you have the game on lock. They sack their Matter Reshaper, right? Elder Deep Fiend, tap down your team, untap, play Reality Smasher, and swing in for 14. I mean, it's just going to be crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is just going to be stuff like that happens. Chaining Elder Deep Fiends, there's no deck in the format that can actually beat that. There's not a counterspell deck, really, so it's going to be tough to get past that. This combined with Drowner of Hope is also something that can horribly interfere with what you're doing. And then the moment you think you're going to kill the Drowner of Hope, they just go 2 blue, Elder Deep Fiend, ouch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like the blue-red Eldrazi deck a lot. So the deck that everybody's talking about, the deck that everybody wants to be good, Cameron, is?
Spirits, right?
Yeah.
It's the new fairies.
It's the new fairies. And it will be good. It will be... I've seen a ton of different variations on this deck. A lot of them are playing Avacyn's, which kind of surprised me.
Okay.
I see this deck as being much more low to the ground, much more, topping out at like 3, maybe 4 on the curve. But, playing a 5-mana creature, though amazing as Avacyn is, kind of surprises me. I think the more you're trying to make this a control deck, the worse off you're going to be.
Okay.
I really like Anafenza in this deck as well. And I know that's kind of been something that a lot of people have kind of decried as not good enough. A lot of people have looked at this deck as being a flash deck, meaning it's not necessarily important that you're playing spirits as you're playing creatures with flash, right? So that's where the Avacyn, and then there's this card from Origins, which is like 2, a blue and a white for a 2/3, and it gives all other flyers +1/+1, and it's got flash. So just playing things at instant speed versus this. Now, I should say that this instant speed stuff can really interfere with ramp decks and like blue-red tempo, that kind of thing, right? If you, it can interfere with them, but you have to be low to the ground. If they have an opportunity to get to your Elder Deep Fiend, they're hitting you so much harder, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Spell Queller, while fantastic and maybe the best card in the set, there is the long-term potential to lose horribly, right? So, if they actually stabilize and they start killing your Spell Quellers, that's a huge problem. So, this deck, though, I think is very good, and I think will be tier 1.
Yeah, it seems to have like the most buzz amount. I mean, like everybody I talk to, it's like, I want to try this deck. I'm going to start experimenting, brewing or whatever with it. So, it's definitely, I think, the one that has like the most anticipation behind it.
Yeah, it's also, I think the style of deck that people haven't had in a while. This kind of tempo, flash, do things on instep and upkeep and all that.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, I don't even know if I've had like in my standard history a tempo deck that was great. I think when the original Innistrad came out, that was probably like the last time there was like a real tempo-y Snapcaster type deck, and I just never played it in standard.
It is unusual. I would say, yeah, the original Delver deck was very, very, very tempo focused. And even then, you weren't playing at flash speed. You were playing, essentially at sorcery speed until you got to your late game. Then you were vapor snagging and Snapcaster vapor snagging and mana leaking and all that. But it still played Ponder, G-Probe, Delver, all that stuff, right? Okay, so the deck that I'm projecting as getting the most better. That's not to say that it will be amazing off the top, but the deck that I'm projecting to go from tier 2 to tier 1 and something that will regularly top 8 are green-black or green-black-blue control decks. I think they get the most tools out of this set, outside of the Spirits deck, which, let's be honest, like 3/4 of the Spirits deck is in the new set. But this card specifically is just a small piece. If you look at the green-black, maybe it's a Seasons Pass kind of control deck. I don't know if it'll use that card, but I feel like the green-black deck is the most well-positioned to fight these creature battles, to take advantage of a card like Emrakul, and actually be a win con that can get to it quickly. Most of the other decks in this list can't. And so things like Emrakul, you also have access to Sylvan Advocate, which is a house against the humans decks. So I feel like this green-black deck is much better now. And things like Ishikana. So, I mean, we were lukewarm. We were happy. We were like, oh, yeah, this is going to go in the green-black deck. The more I've kind of stewed on this card, the more impressed I am by it. And I think, yes, it's not super great when you have Delirium, but when you do have Delirium, it's off the chain. Amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And people are going to figure out ways to use Delirium to its best suit, I think. Just because you're right. The sheer power of this card alone, you're right, makes this deck a little bit better. Maybe a lot bit better. I don't know, but this is one actually that I'm actually most curious about to be playing in Standard right now. I don't know. It just seems to have the best legs and to have the best answers to Avacyn and all these other like major threats right now.
Yeah, and you have a ton of removal. Advocate solves a lot of your problems. And, you know, you have the ability to get Delirium very quickly in this deck, right? You're going to play Oath of Nissa. So you might see weird things where it's green-black, and then they play Chandra in it because of Oath of Nissa. They also are in the best position to play, like, Flip Nissa. I mean, there's a lot of really cool, interesting things that this deck can do. And I don't know. I've just gotten really high on it. So I have less to say about my projected tier 2 stuff. So I just want to cover those really, really quickly. Okay. And some of this is going to make me a little sad, Cameron, because tier 2, right off the bat, Grixis Control. Earlier in this standard season, I thought Grixis Control, I mean, it was great. And a lot of people played it at whatever GP that was. I think LSV even played it. And I bought into the deck. I love it. And I like it as an FNM deck. If you know that you're going to an FNM, there's going to be a ton of red-white humans and mono-white humans. It's great.
So good. I love it.
However, any of these decks that are playing things like Emrakul or playing like, you know, bigger creatures, kind of a slightly longer game to an all the way long game, you're in like you're in big trouble.
A world of pain.
Yeah, because you can't really deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Another one that I thought, and I've seen this floating around, is blue-red or Rug Dragons. Okay, so there is Mirrorwing Dragon, and Thunderbreak Regent is actually still in Standard. Okay, but there's also our old friend Sarkhan Unbroken. Like,
oh no,
you can play this kind of random, you know, Icefall Regent dragon, like blue-red dragons deck. It can be done. It's fine. It's not great. It'll probably be a lot like the black-red dragons deck from last Standard. Okay.
All right.
Cameron, you just can't even stomach that, right?
You know, if somebody's playing that Friday night, I have respect for them, but who knows? I'll probably be completely wrong. It'll be tier 1 and just dominate Standard. So
I would highly doubt that. The low end of that deck is just, I mean, you're hoping to hit your removal and not get flooded with a bunch of big dragons.
Garbage, right? Yeah.
That's bad. Anyway, and the other problem, I mean, just being honest with you, with these dragon-style decks is like the Banned Humans deck. I mean, you can get creatures in Banned Humans to be 8/8s. Like, that happens all the time. And then, you know, your dragon just kind of seems whatever, right? The various Eldrazi green-based ramp decks I also have in this category. I think they'll be fine, but not great. And the presence of the Spirits deck makes them even more dubious, right? Because your Wraths aren't as good. Spell Queller doesn't get hit by Kozilek's Return the first time around, which is a really important thing to point out. If they have any way to protect or gain, like, you know, anything on their team. But the presence of Dromoka's Command has also held those decks back a lot. I mean, the whole idea that people are like, oh, return, and they're like, hey, Dromoka's Command, none of your damage means anything, right?
For sure.
But we've seen the green-red ramp decks just kind of fall off almost entirely. I think that trend will kind of continue. You can certainly win some matches with it, though. So other things that people are talking about, Super Friends. There's this card that's like Collect a Company. Have you seen this? It's like 1,000,000 mana, or I shouldn't say that. It's like 5 mana or something, and you can. It's sorcery, and then you can put 2 planeswalkers of your top 6 into play.
Uh-huh.
So multiple people brewing that. You know it's going to be tried. You know it's going to be bad. Deploy the Gatewatch. Thank you, Platinum. Is the name of the card, and it's not good. It's not. It's not a thing you should do, right? Especially when a bunch of the best planeswalkers in Standard are creatures to begin with. Like,
For sure. Yeah.
okay. The Blue Prison deck is going to be, it's that deck that plays whatever the name of that card is, where you get so many zombies for the amount of instants in your instants and sorceries in your yard. Like, that deck will continue to exist, and will just continue to have great matchups against the long game decks and terrible matchups against the aggro decks. It'll just kind of be a thing, right? Last two, and these make me sad. I think Madness Vampires is still going to be awful. I think a lot of people were hoping, and you watched on stream me play against a Madness deck, right, Cameron?
Yeah, and everything about it I liked, except that it didn't win.
It didn't do what it was supposed to do, which is anything.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever they have a Madness Enabler down, like it is noticeable how much better that deck is, but it's like a it's like an event deck. It's like a starter, like a casual starter deck when you don't have a Madness Enabler. Like, it's bad. Like, if you're playing a 4-mana 4/3 in Standard, that's just unacceptable.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's not stopping anybody from doing anything. And then, of course, the old whipping boy, what we thought could have been a thing that we missed on horribly, is werewolves. You'll notice that there aren't really any werewolf enablers in this set.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's like the Eldrazi werewolf thing or whatever that's okay, but like it doesn't fit into the red-green Alara thing that I think everybody wanted it to do, and it didn't, right? So was it Alara? What's her name? Not Arlen. I'm sorry, not Alara.
Arlen. Well, sorry, there are a lot of werewolves that are seeing Standard play. The problem is, they're just in the green-white humans deck, right? There's Pacifist, there's Duskwatch Recruiter, great cards, but they don't pair well with red right now, and that's that. You're just going to play them in a green-white deck. I mean, Duskwatch Recruiter is, it's crazy to me that card's not a rare. It's way too good for an uncommon. But hey, there it is. Any other decks that I missed, Cameron? Was that thorough enough for you?
No, I thought that was totally thorough. I think 50% of the time you're going to be half right. So, I think, I like those analytics.
Oh yeah. And I used a lot of statistical analysis, like, off the top of my head while I was waiting for my daughter to get off a roller coaster. Right. So
yeah.
But I love talking about this stuff. Like, nothing gets me more excited than the idea of a new format. Like, I like the idea of a new format more than I like the new format itself. Right.
Totally. Yeah.
But I think that's like a thing that we all have as Magic players, right? Okay, Cameron. So we're going to go ahead and get out of this segment, come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about Ghostbusters, right?
Totally.
All right. We'll be right back. Welcome back. After that exhaustive metagame breakdown, we are going to talk about, other things in our lives. So, Cameron, I'm going to start with you because you've led the most interesting life. You've kept bees. You've gone to the movies. Basically everything but play Magic. So go ahead. What's up?
Yeah. So do you want me to go into a 45-minute diatribe about beekeeping? I can do that.
No, I'm cool. I'm totally cool.
Okay, cool. Ghostbusters. So as much of the internet has kind of freaked out on, Ghostbusters was released, much to, I think, there's just a huge backlash against the movie trailers. So, people are passing judgment on this movie, before anything was kind of revealed, right? I think there was just it was kind of like Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, I guess, where they're using callback music with a single piano, and it's digital effects instead of like the old rotoscope effects or whatever they're using.
So you're saying they didn't use real ghosts?
Yes. Yeah.
Holy
sadly.
cow! Holy cow!
Oh, it's over. But no, Ghostbusters is a totally fine movie. It's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it's, I would argue, better than Ghostbusters 2, which I didn't think was that good of a movie, let's be honest. But you know, I mean, they brought back the entire cast, everybody, like except I mean Rick Moranis, who doesn't act anymore. But I mean, like Sigourney Weaver was in it, and Ernie Hudson. I mean, like all these great, you know, actors from the original movie. So I mean, like the entire cast was behind this new cast, which I thought was really cool, and it was just a fine movie. I mean, it had a lot of the faults I think that modern day movies have, as far as like relying too much on green screen, and the actors aren't given a chance to actually react to what's happening on screen, which happens. This is not symptomatic. This is symptomatic, I should say, of a lot
Movies
of movies
today.
right now. Yeah. But it's totally fine. You know, I laughed at certain parts. And I will say that it was really interesting, just like on this, if you're looking at this from like a feminist perspective, this movie is very fascinating in how, with its treatment of women, where nobody is overly sexualized. Nobody is like the cliches of like, you know, two women actors who have to like be catty with each other or fight over a man or anything like that. It's just, you know, four women who are just, you know, kind of riffing on each other and having and you know, solving or fighting ghosts. And so in that sense, it's very similar to the original 80s movie, where it's just four dudes who are kind of riffing on each other. And it works. So like the movie is fine. It's not horrible. It's not amazing, but it's just a total solid B, I would say.
Cameron, let me tell you a secret to being on the internet. Everything must be extreme. You must love or hate all things. You cannot give something a C-. Okay? You can't. Not okay.
Yeah, right.
It was either the greatest thing that's ever happened to you or the worst thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So no, I'm definitely going to check it out. I probably have to choose between that and the new Star Trek. So we're going to see how the reviews for the new Star Trek kind of come out. I want to see and then kind of make that decision. I mean, I know my wife's going to angle for Ghostbusters because apparently Chris Hemsworth's in it. So
yep.
You know, off we go.
He's hunky. We'll say that.
Well, I mean, the resemblance between he and I is obviously, you know, it's there.
Yeah.
It's noticeable. Yeah. It's noticeable.
Yeah. Aren't you like Thor's second half brother in the new movie?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Like that. I mean, he might be slightly bigger than me, just a touch. But I think he hits the gym more than I do, right? Because I work for a living, Chris. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to talk about a few things. So first of all, did you see the behind the scenes making of featurette for Star Wars?
Yeah.
It
looks great.
Yeah, I'm encouraged. I know there's a lot of kind of concern, quote unquote, concern buzz, and some of that comes from a place of like, I don't know, like people just wanting to say something negative about Star Wars because like there was a whole thing about, oh my God, they're doing reshoots. It's like, guys, that's a good sign. If like all the Lord of the Rings movies had reshoots, like it's a very common thing to edit and go, okay, we've made a mistake. Now, if they're doing a massive amount of reshoots, that's where it's like, oh, but yeah. Supposedly there were some issues with tone. I want a dark tone, but apparently, you know, Disney is expecting something a little bit lighter. The making of thing though is very encouraging, and I'm stoked. There's a lot of smart people working on these movies, and I'm hopeful that they'll pull it off. Did you check that video out?
Yeah, I did. And this is actually something where my complaint about Ghostbusters with like the actors not having anything to react to. I mean, these are very practical effects in the sense of like explosions are happening, giving the actor some startle to jump, right? Or a reason to move left. You know, it's like all those like little subconscious things that add to that movie going experience when you watch it. And you need those, I think. Yeah.
And like I said, I'm hopeful. I'm going to be there day one. So I do have some negative things to report. So a game came out this week called Songs of the Deep. And if you watch the video for it, it looks like it's just so for me. If you're an old school gamer, it's totally like it speaks to you on a lot of levels. It's a Castlevania Metroid style submarine game that's told in the form of a Celtic myth. I know, right?
Are you sure you didn't write this? I mean, that sounds like
it's made by Insomniac, but the bottom line is, and it's well made, and I think if you're into old school gaming, you should check it out anyway. but it's they shipped it unfinished. The frame rate is at times very, very, very bad, and it's a 2D game, and I'm playing on a PlayStation 4. And there's one specific mechanic that is very poorly designed that involves bombs. There are some elements that are just like, man, if they could just have cleaned this stuff up, this would be one of the games of the year. So it's a very frustrating thing to play, but it's worth checking out. I would recommend waiting till it goes on sale. Other thing, this is actually positive. What's your relationship with Voltron, Cameron? Like the show?
Dude, we haven't talked about this yet. I watched the first episode on Netflix.
So did I. So did I.
Totally down for this show. Love it.
So here's the thing. I did not grow up around Voltron. It just wasn't on like where I lived. So I didn't have access to it. And I think I was like 2 when it originally aired or something. So, but that being said, man, I knew this animated series. So it's a Netflix exclusive. It's written and, it's written and the showrunners are the people that did Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender. And now this show sets its sights a little bit lower. Like Korra had a lot to say and was one of those things that's a lot bigger than just a Saturday morning cartoon. But this is just like you want to wake up on a Saturday morning, make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and just spend time with this. It is so much fun. It is a great show to watch with your kids. It is not trying to be anything serious. There's no Toy Story 3 moment of people holding hands while they're about to be incinerated. Nothing like that. It's just a great... Let's root for this team. They're so much fun. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
Is that where you were at too, or did you?
Yeah, totally. I'm totally down. I'll be watching the entire thing. You're right as far as like this is like the 30-year-old man's Saturday morning cartoon now. Like this is the future of like what Saturday morning cartoons are, and it's great.
Yeah, and it's how you remember, though they are not. G.I. Joe, Transformers, all those 80s era. Like, if you go back and watch those episodes now, they're pretty bad. But this show is basically that in terms of plot structure, but executed really well. So, anyway, we've gone on about all these extra things, Cameron. So, some quick hits. Patreon subscribers. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for everything you do. We are going to add some stuff because we're doing the streaming thing. There's going to be nothing that really changes. We're just kind of adding to, and we're researching that, like chat icons or these kinds of things. You'll have access to the stream replays for my streams, that kind of stuff. We're just going to add that on, and I want to give a heads up if you're out there doing that. Also, I stream Mondays Modern, Thursdays Standard or Draft. Pop in, we're on this channel, check it out. Cameron, if someone would like to get a hold of you,
that can be on Twitter at Cameron_McCoy.
And I am at Curtis Now. Our official show feed is at SpikeFeedMTG. We will check you guys next week.